Hello Ceri, it's lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you, Jack. Welcome to Llinfawr.
So Ceri, 30 years of fishing. I'm sure you've got a lot of stories to tell. You've seen a lot of things, seen a lot of fish. But where does it all start for you? How did it all begin?
Well, actually, where we are now, Llinfawr, this is where I learned to fish when I started off. I was at the age of 12 then, and how it all come about was, there was a teacher in school then, Dave Roberts his name was, and every Wednesday after school, after class, he'd have fly tying evenings. And that's how it started really. We used to, every couple of weeks then we'd all go fishing together, and then this was the local, the nearest place to my home, and I used to catch a train to the end of the valley. It was about a 6-mile walk over the top of this mountain then to this lake, and so I used to do that 3-4 times a week.
Brilliant. Would you say this teacher is the main inspiration for you to take on fishing?
Yeah, I think it was, because I don't think there were any people in my family which fished. I think there might have been a great uncle, because we actually researched to see where I got my fishing from. But I always had the passion, I wanted to fish, and it wasn't until I was 12 when I went to the comprehensive school that I come in touch with this Dave Roberts. He's a scripture teacher, which I didn't like scripture at all, but I took it just to keep in touch with him so I can go fishing, you know.
Obviously you mentioned, so in your younger teens you entered competitions. What were the first few competitions like? What takes place?
Yeah, well, there are 2 different categories. You've got bank fishing, like we are today, you're fishing off the shore, and there's boat fishing. And I joined a club called the Osprey Fly Fishers from Abercynon, and most of the competitions then were bank. So I would go along, and then, you know, I was catching fish, and then some of the club members there were internationals. And then I started to realise I must be getting good at this, because I started beating them as well. And then you fish then, every year you get the Welsh trials where you fish the home internationals, England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales. And that's on boats then, loch-style fishing is called. So you have to qualify then from your club, being the top 6 I think is from the club, to fish the trials. There's 2 rounds to go through, and then you come through to the top 14. And then you fish then an international in different countries, wherever they would be. So the competition scene, I did an awful lot. European Championships, we won the team event 1 year. And then, it's like everything I suppose, you do it for so long, it becomes a bit stale, you know. You want something else. And because I was doing work with the magazines as well, I was fishing every week, doing features and articles, you know, it was like, right, I'm doing this, I do need something else. And this is when I decided to catch something special. I want to catch the biggest trout that ever swam in this lake. The one main lake you could say is the place for trout fishing in the whole world is Loch Corrib in the west coast of Ireland, County Galway. And it's 30 mile long, 8 mile wide, and it's a big chunk of water. It's beautiful, breathtaking, lots of islands. So I wanted to catch the biggest trout that ever swam in Loch Corrib. So it became an obsession, and every chance I'd get, every weekend I'd have free, every holidays I'd go to Ireland, and I have my own boat on the lake. So it's a case of just driving over there by myself, and then I would then fish from sometimes as early as 4 o'clock, but more often than not, about 8 o'clock in the morning, till 10, 11 o'clock at night. And in 2011, I was getting them, first of all, £6, £7, £10, 15, and then I knew I was close to getting a big fish. I wanted to break the 20-pound barrier. So then in 2011, I had one 19 and a half. I was ecstatic, I knew I was close now. And then 10 years ago, in 2012, I went to the same spot, a year to the day. I hooked this fish at, let me get this right, I hooked this fish at 2 o'clock, and I landed it at 3:15. And I was 4 miles out in the lake in this big wind, and I did almost lose it once. He was in the net and got out.
Oh.
So you can imagine the state that was in, the shaking. And then I did manage to get it in, I was exhausted mentally as well as physically, and then I just went into the lee of an island and the quiet part of the island, so just to have a rest. And I phoned my mate on the phone, and he came from the bottom end of the lake up, and then as soon as he seen it, he said, "That's the record." Now, little did I know at the time that Paul, when he was travelling back, he'd phoned the pub where we were staying, and it was like jungle drums then. So, but little did I know, when I come into the village, it's a small village, Clonbur, 2 pubs either side, there must have been about 200 people in the street waiting. Wow. It was like a royal visit.
Wow.
When I caught it, it was £25. But when I officially weighed it, it was £23.12, and that was, and still is, the record.
Well, that just shows the culture as well in that town as well, of how big that fish meant to them as well. Like you were seen as a celebrity for that day. So you must have been absolutely ecstatic when you realised that there was the record breaker.
Obviously I was pleased. I was exhausted, and the amount of people who drove from Dublin that night, which is across the other side of Ireland, to be there to see it, because it is a piece of history. Yeah. They were there, they can tell their grandchildren, we were there when the big trout was caught. It was a nice experience, you know, but yeah. And when I found that I've achieved something which I wanted to achieve, so it's a case now, what's next? And then it's nice to come back to your roots, to come to a place like this and just catch normal trout, £1, £2, £3, whatever. It's like do a full circle almost, you know.
I bet it is nice to come back after knowing you've accomplished one of the biggest catches, well, the biggest catch. So obviously now, I'm expecting you want to try and beat that. You want to try and, do you want to keep going? What do you think about that?
Well, I'm going on Wednesday, back out, first time for 2 years because of lockdown. I haven't been there. And it's actually helped because it gives you more incentive now. You've had a break from it. Yeah. So I'm keen now to go out and not necessarily break it straight away, but get back into the routine and get the methods going and look in the searching the places and the lake. And so that's the idea. If I get a bigger one, it'll be some achievement, because I can't see there's going to be a bigger one there.
So Ceri, we have relocated you. Obviously you've brought your gear along, so what are we going to be doing exactly today?
Well, I'll run through the basics of what we've talked about as regarding the tackle, and then so I'll do a setup for the conditions today. Now when it comes to fly choice, just to give you some understanding, I put it together a small selection here, because you can fly fish not only for trout, you can fly fish for many fish, pike, bass. So just give you a rough selection of what flies people fish with. Now you've got a selection there, sea trout flies, which fish mainly at night in the rivers, and these are very much the same as well, and salmon flies, which are normally a bit bigger, you fish in the rivers. They're more like shrimpy pattern flies. And then these large flies are for pike fishing. Like for instance, that's like a small mouse, you know.
Oh yeah, I see. It even has the eyes.
Yeah, it does, yeah. And these then, which are for pike anglers, but it's obviously trout fishing we're fishing for today. And something which has become popular the last few years are fly fishing for bass in the estuary and in the rivers and on the South Wales coast. But what we're fishing with today are small imitative patterns, or smaller patterns for trout. There's 2 reasons a trout takes a fly. One, because it's hungry and he thinks it's food, and the other one is when you've got maybe a trout which he's not really feeding, but to get him to take, you've got to aggravate him. Okay. So these don't imitate anything really, they just, you fish them, and if he comes across their face, you know, they're going to take it. That's a brief introduction of the flies, the types, but there's actually thousands of patterns to use.
Obviously your work, with 25 years being a freelance photographer, it has taken you places away from the UK, such as like Iceland, Sweden, Switzerland. Going out there, taking photography of the fishing and fishing yourself, what was it like in all these countries? Was the fishing culture different, or was it better? What do you think about all that?
Yeah, I think actually you think the fishing's better in other places, and a lot of them are, but we really do have to appreciate what we got here in Wales. I mean, we've really got some special fishing here. And I think, like I said, I've been to Iceland, that's phenomenal. There's more fish than water there. I mean,
Wow.
It really is. But it's a great level of fishing. You meet people as well, all sorts of people. You could be fishing next to somebody who's, you could say, a bank manager, a solicitor, or you can meet somebody who's just a refuse collector, you know. You can meet all walks of life, you know, and the great thing is when you go on these press trips, and not necessarily press trips, when you go to these different venues, you need to know the background of where the fish are. Even though I'm an experienced angler, you still want to know what bits of a lake is fishing best and whatever. So you get guides and gillies, and they will take you these different places, and you know, you meet so many friends. I've got so many friends. There's one of the first gillies, well, first guides actually, I met in Sweden, Per Eriksson, and we're still friends now. That's like 30 plus years ago, you know. And so you meet some wonderful people with the same mentality and the same pastime and pleasures, you know.
Obviously with all the different cultures as well, with fishing being a minority sport, it can still bring so many people together. And like you said, all the people you've met and fished with years and years ago, did you exchange like any techniques? Like, is there any different techniques they have out there that we don't have here?
Yeah, well, there's different species of fish as well, which you've got to use different techniques. And it's great, you learn different fly methods and the lines, different, yeah, there are an awful lot of differences you learn, and it's great to exchange as well, because they haven't come across methods I use then. There's very, very few, I would say, youngsters taking the sport up. So maybe there will be a difference in time where there'll be less places to fish, but it's a long time before it'll die out, I think. I think it's great to be out in the fresh air as well. It's good for the mind as well, you know.
Obviously with the younger generation, do you feel like there's not that much out there to encourage the new generation to take on the hobby of fishing?
Well, I think there's plenty of opportunities around. There are different clubs and organisations and associations which run days throughout the year for casting clinics or somebody learning, wanting to fish, and that's adults as well as juniors. But I think it's harder probably now, purely because of social media probably. It's just people are more interested in sitting in front of a laptop or a computer, you know. It's more exciting playing a game, they think, maybe, you know.
Very true.
Before I pick what we're going to fish for today, this is the fly rod we're going to use. For general purpose fishing, a 10-foot rod is an all-round rod. You can say you go from 8 foot up to 12 foot or whatever sometimes. But for general purpose, it's a 10-foot fly rod, single-hander. And then this one's a 4-piece. I put the 2 pieces in each section together.
I see.
And then you just join them and line the eyes up. So that's your rod set up there. Now, for someone learning to fish, you can pay as little as, I don't know, £70 for a rod.
Really?
You don't have to pay lots of money, like this one, 700, this one.
Oh well.
Yeah, but it's who's behind the rod that counts, like. And you got the fly reel, which holds the line, the fly line. You attach it to the rod, and then you've got, obviously, just to hold the line. So then you want to find the end.
So obviously the difference in how long the line is that just for the distance that it's going, or does it?
More often than not, yeah. A smaller rod, if you fish in small brooks, streams and rivers, then you know, you don't need a big rod really.
So it doesn't matter the size of the fish you're going for, you'll still be using that line? Yeah,
more often than not as a guide, yeah. There are exceptions. So then you've got the fly line, which is loaded to the reel.
Okay.
So you strip some line off. And you thread it through the rings then. Now there's no weight in fly fishing, you know, as other coarse fishing and sea fishing, where you've got some lead to cast out. This is where the art of fly fishing, the skill is, you've got to get the line out just by using the fly line alone. So once you pull some line out, obviously then you need to attach some nylon then. Obviously if you put a fly on that, the fish are going to see this line.
There is a small stigma in a way that fishing can be seen as boring, but obviously you're out in this brilliant landscape, and obviously there's no one about. It's just you with literally just the birds in a way and the fish. So how is that for you on your mental health and stuff? How does it make you feel being out here in this environment that people don't realise?
Well, personally, I think, you've got the two extremes. You've got the tranquility of you go to a nice place and, taking the surroundings and seeing everything and appreciate what's around you. But also then you got the adrenaline, the excitement is coming to a new place, knowing that there's great fish in that lake. And when you're pulling that line in and it stops, it's like electricity, and the line just ripping out of your hand and the reel is screaming, and when you're fishing, every day you can have a fish for a lifetime, every time you go. It's something which, once you've experienced, I think a lot of people haven't tried it, probably say it's boring. People who have tried it, they can see it's far from boring, and it's a great way to mix, to get out and talk and communicate with people, where, especially after the restrictions of lockdown, where you're in the house for months on end. It's nice to be back out communicating with people, and I think you appreciate a lot more having what we've been through the last couple of months.
Obviously your main new hobby that you've taken on is the podcast. Obviously you started in lockdown. So why did you come about to create this series?
Well, as I said, I've worked for the magazines for the best part of 30 years, each month doing articles and features, but I noticed 3 years ago that the magazine sales across the board, not just fishing, went off a cliff. The sales of magazines, every month you get magazines closing. And that's down to social media and online websites and different things where people can get things instantly now. You haven't got to wait a month to read about it. So the magazines were dying, and my work was getting less, and I decided before it went to nothing to do something different. And then during I think it was the second week or third week of lockdown, where you couldn't leave the house, I was in the garden shed, and I was thinking, with a pint of Guinness, I was thinking, what am I going to do? So I thought, I got to do something different. So a friend of mine, she's done well in online businesses. She suggested to me to do a podcast. So then I didn't know much about it really. So that was in the March, I think, February, March. And then I bought so much gear then, I didn't know anything about it. I bought the recording equipment, and I played around with it and tested it, and I was ready for July to launch it. Now the reason I did the podcast, go back to your question, is because all the experience I had, all the people I met, all the places I'd been, I wasn't just going to, that was it, that was gone. I thought I could draw on those experiences for the podcast. So then I started contacting a few people from all over the country, and I chatted with them on the phone initially to record the podcast, and then when the restrictions lifted, I was going to their place or they were coming to mine, and it's just it's been, I think it's about 20 months now, and I've done 80 episodes. I do one a week, and it's last month was 16,000 RSS subscribers, they called, and so it's been received really well.
Do you have a favourite with all your episodes? Is it the funniest one, or is there one that stands out the most?
There's a few, honest to God, there are lots of funny ones. I'd recorded one last night which had me in tears. But something which I do on each podcast, at the end to finish off, I'll ask each guest, where would you want to be to make your last cast? And I've had people message me saying, that's brought a lump to my throat listening to, their last cast. A lot of them are maybe my last cast, if I could make one, would be here. And I do the full circle then. Did the first one here, and the last 1 year. But I love listening to each person's, they're quite poignant and quite romantic almost, some of the stories they come up with, why they want to make their last cast there.
Great to see that your podcast has brought so many stories and different characters together. It's really, it's amazing to see, because there's not that many other fishing podcasts out there, I believe.
No, there's not. No, I like to think that there's not one out there like mine. The amount of time I put, about 2 days work into each podcast, you know, and it does pay off, because not only is 16,000 people listening to it every week, I find that on the week I put them up on a Friday night, and what I find is then that on the weekend I get lots of emails and messages, and that gives you a bit of a buzz, you know. People are saying, I've been there, I know that person, I've done this, I've done that, and they can relate to it. And what I do get quite a lot of, actually, which makes it worthwhile, is people saying how much has helped their mental health. You know, even if they can't go fishing, or they're going through a tough time, you know, that this helped them. And I find that, you know, something which I didn't expect.
Oh, that's amazing. And obviously, like you said, with so many people coming to you with emails and messages to how you've like impacted them, especially with their mental health as well, helping them in that situation. Could I just ask, have you got any people who are outside the UK?
Yes, there's quite a few episodes. There's I've done one, a guy in Texas.
Oh, wow.
International guests at the moment is only him, but what I plan to do when I come back from Ireland, hopefully I'll have 1 or 2 international trips. I can do it over the phone, but it's nice to meet someone face to face, so I might maybe go to 1 or 2 destinations abroad. And maybe this year, I don't know if it will be this year, but next year, I got lots of plans for the podcast, you know, and maybe get an international feel and some more trips even.
Oh, amazing, especially with the podcast thriving. That sounds amazing, with more content that you're bringing out. No, it's really nice to see, especially for the fishing community, with your podcast. And you should be really proud of what you've done during lockdown.
Thank you.
It's amazing what it is now, what you've created, and I'm sure it's just going to continue growing.
So what you do then, you get some leader material, and this one is 7 pound breaking stream. So generally I'll pull off 3 meters or so.
And then, so what does this do?
Well, this is, you attach this one end to the fly line, and the other end you put the fly on.
Oh, right, I see.
Because you can't actually see it, you hope the fish won't see it. So when the fly then is in the water, you won't see this. And then you do what's called a half blood knot. You put it through the loop, and you put it back through the first loop. Pull, give a little bit of saliva, not to burn, and snap. So that then is connected to the fly line. You cut off the excess. Now what you want to do now is to put the fly choice on the end. So there's a fly I came up not so long back, a couple of days ago, and I caught a few fish. Okay. And this is a dry fly, and I'll pick it out. So this now is called a sedge. Now you're going to tie this on. You do the same knot again. Put it through the eye of the hook. Wrap it round about 5 or 6 times, I would. And then you put that back through then the first loop you've made. And then you just pull that. It's the same knot you can use for most of the fishing. And then you don't have to do this, but something I do. You use what's called mucilin, grease basically. Now to get this fly to float, because you want this fly to float on the surface, you cover the fly with this floatant. So this will help it to float on the surface. Otherwise, you can put down the water and it will sink. Yeah. So there's that. And then you don't want this to float because it'll cause a line in the water on the surface floating and spook the fish. This is just something called Fuller's Earth. It's like mud, it is. So you put this on. So this sinks just under the surface, and then you'll then, the only thing the fish will see is this fly on the top of the water then, you know. That's all we'll have to do now, is to go out, cast, and see if we can get a fish to take the fly. Let's go and give it a try, is it?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So what you need to do to start with is pull some line off the reel, sort of 10 yards or so, and then, oh, like a small fish there now without starting.
Really?
Yeah.
Going away.
Did you get that?
Oh wow.
I foul hooked it. Well, let's hope this ain't the only one we're going to get today. So, the art of casting. Oh, jeez, I got a good. Oh, broke me. Come off. That was a big fish then.
Was it? Wow.
Oh, jeez.
Could have been back to back, eh?
Yeah. Oh no, that would have been great for the camera. That would have.
Wow.
That was a big fish.
You could tell by the tug, you know.
Yeah, he straightened the hook. Damn. I'm shaking now. That was a good couple of pound fish, that was. Let's try and bend this back. See, but what I'm trying to do now is do you see the fly on the surface?
Yeah.
You know what? What we want to try and do is to get a trout to come up. So we'll have a couple of casts here now before I give you the cast to start. Damn. There's the one out there now. See, so you can see the fly line and you can see there's a gap. Got him. Small one again. So what this is now, oh, he's off. Let's check this hook again.
Well, there's a lot more bites than I anticipated when we came down.
But I think they were waiting for us to fish.
You think?
They've been hungry.
They've been watching.
Yeah, so I'll put another fly on. So do you want to have a go at casting?
I mean, yeah, I might as well give it a go.
Now when it comes to casting, you want to pull the line in to start. Now you've got your rod tip always going to start down below, point in the water. Okay. And then if you imagine a clock, that's 12 o'clock, and that's 1, 2, 3. What you need to do is to just slowly lift to 10 o'clock, up to 12, and down. So it's lift, tap.
Just for protection, so it don't hit my eyes.
Yeah, and it looks cool.
Yeah, fashion as well.
Yeah.
Not quite.
Yeah, what happened there was you let the line go far too soon as you were going back. You actually, the timing was right. It's a bit like golf, there's so many things to listen to, you know.
You straightened it up, I guess.
Yeah. It's the sort of thing you just got to keep doing it, and all of a sudden you'll get it and you realise.
Oh, got a bit of line then.
Yeah, that's where you need sunglasses.
I could see how much the wind would impact.
It is. The wind is playing up today. It's all over the place. Like ideally you want to learn to fish, you want to be with the wind behind you.
Oh yes, it is going from the side.
Yeah. Well, being as the wind's coming like this, do you want me to just cast and try and fish? Try and get 1 or 2, I can see 1 or 2 fish there.
Yeah, go for it.
A big part of the fishing in Ireland is lunch. You know, yeah. You know, you could have say 6 of you out, different boats, and you all meet for lunch, and you do a fry up, and you know, you can have a couple of steaks, bottle of wine on the island, make a fire, and it's just a nice thing to do, you know. Not always, you know, have any alcohol, a cup of tea or something, you know, and a bite to eat. And it's very much a good thing the next best thing to fishing is talking about it. And when you're with somebody then fishing and talking about it, it's really enjoyable.
So when you'd come together in Ireland, would that be Would you tend to be all walking around together, or would you spread out along the
No,
river?
in Ireland, 99% of it is boat fishing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you know, we've all got boats, and then we'll just be fishing. Like I would go on my boat now. Sometimes somebody would join me, and there'd be another boat out there, and we just all come in at the same time then, make a fire. And that's for wild brown trout fishing then.
So was you boat fishing when you caught your record?
I was, yeah. My head was really exhausted. The meant, because you think, is it going to come off? Is it going to come off? You know, out over an hour fishing like that.
I bet at any moment as well, it could all just go, just like that.
Well, I'd done it once, a few years previously, but 2 or 3 years previously, I hooked a big fish. Just as big, I'd say. And I broke the line, he came off. And honest to God, that was in the halfway through the trip. I had about 5 days left of the trip. The following day then, I phoned my ferry crossing people, Stena Line, and I went home early. I couldn't face the lake, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So
that day the lake got the better of you, did
yeah,
it?
and that was the day, so the day when I had the big fish on, you can imagine things are going through my head.
Yeah.
Is this going to stay on? And when it did, wow.
The relief and excitement all kicking in.
Yeah, relief, yeah. And I didn't, you know what, I didn't actually, you asked me earlier on, how did it feel? Well, obviously I felt good that it happened and I was happy. But it wasn't until a few days later, I was driving through the village actually in the west of Ireland, and I just pulled over on the lay-by, and it dawned on me then, I don't know why it came to me then, the reality of what I did achieve, you know. To think that from the Ice Age, the biggest trout that ever swam in that lake, I was the only one, was lucky enough to had it.
So just on that day it just kicked in.
Yeah.
Realisation of it all.
That's right. And it was about probably a week later, I'd say.
Wow.
Well, I think these fish have had it by you.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah.
Oh, we did get that little one at the start, right? That was so nice.
Yeah, well I got a story now with the biggest fish and the smallest one.
Really? You think it was the smallest, yeah?